Have you ever wondered how a man of modest Corsican origins rose to become one of the most powerful figures in history? This man, Napoleon Bonaparte, was born on an island, raised in the confines of a military school, and began his ascent through the ranks of the French army. A man of strategic brilliance, undeniable charisma, and a thirst for power. Join me as we embark on a journey to understand the life and legacy of Napoleon Bonaparte. In a world fraught with revolution and war, a young Napoleon seized his chance for glory. Born into a modest family on the island of Corsica, Napoleon Bonaparte was a man of humble beginnings. But what he lacked in birthright, he more than made up for in ambition and strategic genius. After securing a scholarship to a French military academy, Napoleon swiftly rose through the ranks. His early military career was marked by a series of brilliant victories, each one further showcasing his strategic prowess and tactical innovation. From the siege of Toulon to his Italian campaign, Napoleon's undeniable talent for warfare quickly propelled him into the limelight. But it was not just on the battlefield where Napoleon excelled. Amidst the chaos of the French Revolution, he saw an opportunity. With France teetering on the brink of anarchy, Napoleon, ever the strategist, positioned himself as the nation's savior. He masterfully navigated the turbulent political waters, using his popularity with the army and the people to his advantage. In the aftermath of the revolution, a new political structure was born, the French consulate, and at the helm, as first consul, was none other than Napoleon. As first consul, Napoleon implemented a series of radical reforms that modernized France and laid the groundwork for its transformation into a major European power. Yet this was not the end of Napoleon's ascent. His eyes were set on a loftier prize. He yearned for something more than just political power. He desired a throne, a crown, the kind of absolute power that had once been the exclusive domain of kings and emperors. And so, with France firmly under his control, Napoleon began to lay the groundwork for his ultimate goal. His ambition knew no bounds. He was ready to reshape the world in his image. But the ambitious Napoleon was not satisfied with mere political power. He aspired to a throne. In 1804, the world witnessed a new emperor crowned, Napoleon Bonaparte. A man of ambition and intellect, Napoleon ascended to the throne with a vision to transform France into a modern nation. His reign as emperor was marked by significant administrative reforms and expansionist policies that would shape the nation and Europe for years to come. Napoleon's administrative reforms were groundbreaking. He introduced the Napoleonic Code, a comprehensive legal framework that replaced the old patchwork of feudal laws. This new code was a beacon of civil rights, ensuring equality before the law and securing property rights. It was such a revolutionary idea that it's still the basis of civil law in many countries today. Alongside his legal reforms, Napoleon fostered education, establishing a system of public education that aimed to promote literacy and critical thinking. He understood the power of knowledge and sought to make it accessible to all, regardless of their social standing. But Napoleon was not just a reformer, he was also an expansionist. He had an insatiable hunger for conquest. Under his reign, the French Empire stretched across Europe, reaching as far as Russia in the east and Spain in the west. He sought to spread the ideals of the French Revolution, liberty, equality, and fraternity, across the continent. However, his expansionist policies were not without opposition. His military campaigns sparked the Napoleonic Wars, a series of conflicts that engulfed Europe for over a decade. These wars were marked by Napoleon's strategic brilliance and his ability to inspire his troops. Yet they also brought devastation and loss. Napoleon's impact on France and Europe was profound. He reshaped the political landscape, introduced sweeping reforms, and expanded the borders of his empire. His reign was a time of rapid change and progress, yet it was also a time of conflict and upheaval. Yet even as he built an empire, Napoleon's greatest challenge was yet to come. His ambition and desire for power would ultimately lead to his downfall, but that's a story for another scene. In a bid to disrupt British trade routes, Napoleon embarked on an ambitious campaign to Egypt. This marked a new chapter in Napoleon's life, one that was filled with initial triumph but ultimately ended in defeat. The Egyptian campaign was not a random choice. Napoleon had a clear vision. He aimed to weaken Britain's economy by disrupting its trade routes with India. So, in the late 18th century, he led an expedition to Egypt, a strategic location for his plan. Initially, the campaign was a success. Napoleon's forces managed to conquer Alexandria and Cairo, the two major cities of Egypt, with relative ease. This victory boosted Napoleon's image back home in France, further consolidating his power and influence. However, the tide of the campaign changed drastically with the Battle of the Nile. This was a naval engagement that took place in August 1798. The British fleet, led by Admiral Horatio Nelson, clashed with the French in a fierce battle. The result was a crushing defeat for Napoleon. His fleet was decimated, and his dream of establishing a French empire in the East was shattered. The impact of this defeat was significant. It tarnished Napoleon's image as an invincible leader. More importantly, it left him stranded in Egypt, cut off from home without a navy to transport his troops back to France. Despite these setbacks, Napoleon managed to maintain his hold on Egypt for a while. But without the support of his navy, and facing increasing opposition from the locals, his position became untenable. Eventually, he was forced to abandon the campaign and return to France. The Egyptian campaign was a turning point in Napoleon's career. It highlighted his strategic genius but also exposed his overambition and the limitations of his military prowess. It was a chapter full of lessons that would shape the remaining years of his rule. In retrospect, the Egyptian campaign marked the beginning of the end for Napoleon. It was a defeat that foreshadowed his eventual downfall, a stark reminder that even the greatest of leaders can succumb to the challenges of war and the unpredictability of fate. From the heights of power, Napoleon was about to experience a dramatic fall. The year is 1814. Europe, weary of war and chaos, unites against the French emperor. Napoleon's once formidable Grande Armée is now a shadow of its former self, reduced and demoralized by the disastrous Russian campaign and the relentless conflict that followed. Napoleon, ever the warrior, fights relentlessly, but the odds are stacked against him. The Allied forces are closing in on Paris. Sensing the inevitable, he offers his abdication in April, hoping to secure a future for his son. But the Allies have other plans. They exile Napoleon to Elba, a small island off the coast of Italy. Yet the indomitable spirit of Napoleon refuses to be confined. Less than a year later, in a period known as the 100 Days, he escapes Elba and lands on the French mainland. The French, disillusioned with the restored Bourbon monarchy, welcomed their former emperor with open arms. Napoleon seizes the moment and returns to power, but his triumph is short-lived. The rest of Europe, alarmed by his return, mobilizes against him. Their decisive encounter occurs in June 1815 in a place called Waterloo. Despite his tactical genius, Napoleon is defeated in a bloody and protracted battle. This time there is no escape. Napoleon is exiled to St. Helena, a remote island in the South Atlantic. Here, far removed from the grandeur of palaces and the thrill of battle, Napoleon spends his final years. He lives in relative solitude, his only companions being a handful of loyal followers. He spends his days dictating his memoirs, reflecting on his life, his victories, and his defeats. In 1821, the world said goodbye to an emperor, a reformer, a conqueror, Napoleon Bonaparte. His death marks the end of an era, but his legacy continues to echo through the corridors of time. His story serves as a testament to the human spirit's resilience, ambition, and the relentless pursuit of glory. Napoleon Bonaparte, a name that resonates through history. Our journey through his life has taken us from his meteoric rise to power, to his crushing defeat in Egypt, and finally to his downfall as an emperor. But what of his legacy? What did Napoleon leave behind? In France, Napoleon's reign brought about significant social and political changes. He implemented the Napoleonic Code, a legal system that still forms the basis of French civil law today. He also centralized the French government, streamlined the education system, and improved infrastructure. Beyond France, Napoleon's influence stretched across Europe. His military strategies, including the use of massed artillery and flexible infantry formations, revolutionized warfare and are still studied in military academies around the world. His political maneuvers also reshaped the continent, leading to the creation of new nations and the redrawing of old boundaries. But perhaps Napoleon's most enduring legacy is the myth that surrounds him. The image of Napoleon as a military genius, a self-made man who rose from obscurity to rule an empire, continues to captivate us. His life is a testament to the power of ambition, the allure of power, and the cost of hubris. Napoleon Bonaparte, a man of humble beginnings, a man of great power, and a man whose legacy continues to shape our world.